Welcome to the Fearless Pursuit. I'm Danielle Guilbot. Today we're diving into one of the most pressing issues of our time, the health crisis facing Generation Z and also the powerful forces shaping the American diet. My guest today is Grace Price, who is one of Austin Business Journal's 25 under 25s. She's taking on big food and winning. Grace's documentary, Cancer, A Foodborne Illness, exposes the hidden influence of corporations such as Coca-Cola and McDonald's, sparking national conversation. She recently spoke at a U.S. Senate roundtable on the devastating effects of processed food on our generation and also recently testified before the Arizona State Legislature. And this Wednesday, she's working to pass yet another bill. She's currently collaborating with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to help make America healthy again. And Grace is not just a fearless advocate. She's also one of my close friends and colleagues here at the University of Austin. And the most impressive part is probably that she's only 19. You will not want to miss this fascinating conversation with Grace Price. Grace, so we met in 2023, and we instantly became besties.
That is very true.
But I actually didn't know that you were doing a whole documentary about health and food. And so when it came out, I was thinking, oh, my friend is so cool. She's doing such amazing things. What led you to the idea of having this documentary?
Yeah, so I think when I actually met you, it was right before everything kind of came full circle for me. So I had been working on my documentary, or the idea of my documentary, for at least a year and a half at that point. And it all started really in my sophomore year of high school when I was trying to decide what I wanted my masterpiece to be. I know we'll talk about my school at some point, probably later. I mean, you know my crazy school that I went to. But I was given this unique opportunity to pursue a passion project. And I was kind of on this journey of discovering what exactly that would look like. But when I read the book Deep Nutrition the summer of my sophomore year, my mind was completely blown. I had always been interested in health, and I was a big AP Bio nerd. Like, that was my favorite subject. You could ask my friends, they'd be like, oh my gosh, Grace is so weird. You still think that too, so proof right here. But I read about this term called epigenetics. And what this basically means is just a super fancy term for saying that our lifestyle and environment impacts our gene expression. And that's really, really powerful when you actually think about it, because most people believe that your genetics and your DNA are set in stone. You know, you get what you get, you don't throw a fit, tall, you're short, all these kinds of things. But our environment in our life is actually impacting which of these genes get turned on and off and are actively expressed within ourselves, which is just mind-boggling. And especially because I had had a connection to someone who had been lost to cancer within my family. And so my feelings about health weren't the best. I mean, I was pretty annoyed with the medical system at the time. Yeah. I had been told no and been given these, pardon my French, but half-ass answers to why my grandpa had developed this disease. And it was just not satisfying at all. And if anything, it made me feel less passionate about doing anything about my health. I felt as though, well, unlucky roll of the dice whether I get cancer in my lifetime or not. But when I read this term epigenetics, I realized there's a whole emerging field right now where people are actively researching how these chronic diseases like cancer that are just so terrifying and terrible that no one even wants to think about it, it's like the Voldemort of our modern day and age, actually could be preventable through these new scientific discoveries. And once I got hooked on that, I was just obsessed. So for the next year and a half, I was researching like crazy. I would go into a phone booth every single day, read these new scientific papers, read articles, consume podcasts like Andrew Huberman, who I love, and Peter Attia. And my mind was completely blown because every day my preconceived beliefs about health were being knocked down and remodeled over this new idea that, one, the future of health and medicine is actually prevention, and two, the best cure we will ever have is prevention through lifestyle changes. And that is just the exact opposite of what our medical system believes today and what most people believe. And it really shouldn't be that controversial, because when we look at the past ways that we've tried to fix diseases. You look at certain natural remedies being used all the way back in ancient China that actually cured certain diseases better than the pills that we're developing today and are raising billions of dollars for just for like, what, a 12% success rate? So, it's a whole new way of thinking that I became obsessed with, and that is what the basis of my documentary was.
That's amazing. Do you ever think that there could be a real like cure for cancer that's not any lifestyle changes, like a medicinal, non-natural?
I actually love this question because I think a lot of doctors and scientists get asked this all the time who are researching cancer. And as someone who hasn't even graduated college yet, I can tell you I'm fully confident. I have no idea when that would happen. And that is why I think everyone should take full control over the parts of their health that they do have the power to take control over. And who knows when we develop a cure, you know? Who knows if all of the $1 billion will finally go into something, but I can tell you right now that those dollars are actually being wasted on a less ideal form of a cure that in reality isn't what we need right now. What we need right now is we need women who are being diagnosed with breast cancer to understand that the ketogenic diet is a viable alternative therapy so that they don't have to go through chemo or radiation, and they can actually shrink tumors in significant amounts and then remove it surgically. But most people have no idea that this is an alternative or even what keto means. You and I are nerds on this. That's actually one of the ways that we clicked immediately. Like, I remember thinking to myself, like, dang, Danielle's cool, because I said keto and you were like, oh yeah, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I thought that was awesome because no one our age talks about this, Danielle. I have to go onto Twitter and talk to 40-year-old men about keto because no girls are talking about this. So that's why my documentary, I mean, it's about bringing this message to Gen Z and teenagers and kids because no one else is at the more perfect spot right now to prevent these diseases. You know, I always say, like, we are either going to be known as the sickest generation yet or the healthiest one that lived the longest. And we are at this inflection point where we have to decide which one it's going to be.
That's insane.
Yeah.
We had to have a debate about meat versus vegetarianism when we went to the University of Austin class.
I forgot about that.
It was so funny.
That was so funny.
We weren't in the same group, but I think we both won our case for meat eating.
You know what's crazy? I actually had to argue for veganism.
Guys, Grace Price is a fraud.
At UATX, we practice understanding both sides, and I can fairly say it strengthened my belief in the other side.
That's good, though. That's great. Okay, so then you come at this view of cancer from a very, focus on food. Yes. And what you're eating and what you're putting into your body in that regard. A lot of people online are like, oh, but she's ignoring all of these other causes for cancer, and cancer can be genetic. And what would you say to those people
vaccines?
Who
they say all of those things.
Yeah. So what would you say to those people who believe that, like, sure, maybe food is a huge factor of cancer. Yeah. But who think you're not, you're ignoring other aspects.
Yeah, I mean, I very strongly believe in the saying, you are what you eat. I think that food is just such an important thing we have to fix. A lot of people get caught up in these other factors. Like, look, I'm not saying that I think exercise is probably just as important as food, just to get that out there. Same with sleep. Like, there are necessities in everyday life that we have to get right when we're trying to prevent all chronic diseases. That's why holistic healthcare and more like allopathic approaches to medicine are incredible, because they address the person as a whole, not the disease as just a single part of that person. It's ridiculous that we think if we just try to target a tumor and don't fix anything else about the entire terrain of the body, that it's gonna just magically disappear, because that's just not how we function as multicellular and faceted human beings. However, food itself, I mean, just from the moment we are born, it is shaping us. It's impacting our cellular expression. It's impacting our gut microbiome, which our microbiome impacts so many things, including our mental health, large portion of that. Also, our brain consumes 20% of our body's total energy. And when we think about it, really all we are these creatures that rely on energy just to move through life. And where do you get your energy from? Is it good energy or is it bad energy? If you have a race car and you're trying to give it like super cheap fuel, do you think it's going to do super well when it's racing? No, probably not. And so when we view it from an energy standpoint, like what you eat is quite literally making or breaking how you live your entire life. And I really do believe that very strongly. But at the same time, I understand that I took maybe a less nuanced view, which I did sacrifice just to get people's attention to realize food is something we need to pay attention to. That's why I titled it Cancer of Foodborne Illness instead of just Cancer a lifestyle born, it just doesn't click as well. And really, I think a lot of people believe cancer of all diseases is the least connected to your food. And I mean, I would hope they believe that, because when you see what these cancer patients are served in hospitals, it's ridiculous.
Crazy.
Like terrifying.
Wow.
Yeah.
Have you gone and visited hospitals to see what they're serving? Are you trying to fix it from that angle as well as schools?
I've gone to hospitals before and I've seen what they are served. I've interviewed some practitioners who have also just told me who served like multiple different cancer patients, and they're just having to completely help them rethink, like, no, you actually don't need to be consuming excessive amounts of sugar. This is feeding the tumor right now. That is how they grow, and you're putting yourself at risk of it growing much more exponentially. But it is something I would really love to do more of. I think that with this whole MAHA movement, Make America Healthy Again, I've been so blessed to be a part of it. But at the same time, I still don't think people understand what this movement truly means. It's easy to talk about big food and big pharma are greedy and they're stealing from us and we're sick. What does it mean to be sick, though? You know what it means? It means sitting alone in a hospital bed in a room where there is dingy noises coming out of these air vents. The lights are far too bright to be considered humane, and you are just there alone in your thoughts considering whether you're going to die or not, because these diseases are considered a death sentence. And that's just not ideal for anyone, and don't wish that upon anyone. But those are the people we're trying to save, and the people who haven't developed that yet, we're trying to prevent them from having to ever experience that, because that is just miserable, quite honestly. And so we need to highlight these real stories. And no, it's not manipulative. It's real and it's raw, and it's a reality for people today, right now as we're speaking. And we just take advantage of good health. And that's the truth of the matter, especially with kids our age, Danielle. How hard is it to get someone to care whether they drink a Coke? They think they're going to live forever. And like, no, they don't see that there's a car wreck about to happen to them. It's like, it's so bad, but you sound like a crazy person when you try to let them know, like, okay, so you're fun at parties, aren't you? Stuff like that,
And then we went to Costa Rica on a business trip recently, and you were so cool. You went around and you interviewed people who were, native to Costa Rica and talked about their diet. And they all had, I feel like, such different experiences with food than we do in America. And it was very eye-opening. I'd wonder if you'd like to share some of what you learned.
Yeah, well, just to brag on you a little bit, you were very cool on that trip, too. You were working hard on your podcast. I wanted to eat, I think it was like a fresh papaya. I was like, Danielle, you want to try some? And Danielle was like, no, I've actually got work to do. I was like, dang. I guess I'm just going to eat my papaya alone. But yeah, no, I was looking forward to interviewing a lot of the locals there, because I've heard so much about Costa Rica. One of the blue zones is located there. Whether you believe the blue zones are legit or not, I know that's a controversial take. Either way, they have a lower mortality rate than we do in the U.S., so I thought it was definitely worth investigating. And after interviewing some of the locals and their diets, one thing became very clear to me, which is just that they prioritize cooking with their families in communities, and making sure that they cook with love, because it's for the people they love. And when you do that, I mean, I'm not trying to hate, but I definitely feel more fulfilled when I have made a homemade meal for like my family or my friends versus when I've heated up some instant ramen for everyone. I'm like, here you go, guys. Like, this is how much I love you, and I just give you basically a bowl of sodium.
Yeah.
Like, that's not really caring for others. And I thought that was a really beautiful take because food used to be something that brought people together, and we've lost a lot of our pride in that as a country. And I think part of that does have to do too with, this shift from women being maybe less encouraged in society to be stay-at-home moms, and like there are a lot more hardworking women who are out there with jobs and stuff, and cooking just really isn't like a household priority anymore. And it should be, because it matters. Like we talked about earlier, I mean, it really is a huge determinant of our health and our life experience. So
what would you say to the people who argue that, well, I only have enough money for ramen, I don't have money to go buy all these fresh foods?
Yeah. I want to start by saying that this is something I hold very near and dear to my heart. Like, my mom and grandparents grew up on food stamps in South Texas. They did not have a lot of money, and they struggled a lot with that. And I recently went to try to testify for a bill on this because I think that it's absolutely terrible that we allow these big food companies to take advantage of lower income households in the US. And that's the truth of the matter. There are so many households that are struggling to get access to real food. Food deserts are real. Lack of good information on what is healthy is real. Massive amounts of confusion that, let me tell you, was purposeful online by our most trusted health institutions is real. All of that is real and is something that we need to address right now to actually try to help people from lower income families. But by just financially incentivizing them to go and feed their addiction to sugar, that's not the answer. And the number one purchased commodity under SNAP food stamps is soda. And people can't stand when I say that. And I got a ton of hate on Twitter because I posted about this the other week, and people thought it was totally insensitive that I was stealing soda from people who have a lot less money than me. And I agree, I'm very privileged for the school that I went to and the life that I live, and my parents worked very hard to get me to grow up in that kind of situation, and I'm so grateful for it. But at the same time, I'm not going to just sit by and watch as these soda lobbyists literally showed up at the same hearing that I was at. And they stood there in front of me and said, there is no correlation between soda and obesity. And as soda consumption has gone down, obesity has gone up. Therefore, no correlation.
Wow.
That's a straight up lie. And it's a lie because he knows that his number one customer is a kid. And he's taking advantage of the lower income children of our country, and I will not stand for that. I don't care how canceled I get, because that is what I've found to be consistent across the board when it comes to these families, and it's not okay.
Wow. And what's really cool is you're starting with Generation Z so that we can grow up and then pass down these healthy habits to, our kids and our grandkids, and that's amazing.
Exactly. It comes back to the family.
It's incredible.
That's like what Anna was saying. Shout out to Anna. She was one of the lovely abuelas that I interviewed in Costa Rica, and she was talking about this, how her grandmother passed it down to her, she passed it down to her daughter, and so on. Yeah. Amazing food.
Yeah. So good.
Fantastic.
It was incredible. I hear, are passing a bill, trying to pass another bill on Wednesday.
Yes, I am.
Would you like to give us some information about that?
Oh, I would love to.
So we can root for you.
I would love to. Okay, so a bill that was drafted by Senator Hughes in Texas is going to be up for vote this Wednesday. It's a Senate bill, and it's Bill 314, I believe. The bill addresses multiple chemical additives that have been tied to endocrine disruption and potential carcinogenic risk, so increasing cancer risk. And the goal would be to eliminate these chemicals from all of the school districts in Texas, along with free charter schools that are under the National School Lunch Program.
Wow.
And so the CEP falls under National School Lunch Program. A lot of people ask that. So it would impact a large amount of schools. And I really think that this bill is such a huge opportunity for Texas to take a stand and lead other states on this big health movement that's happening right now. Like, come on, it starts with our kids, and where our kids are getting their food is at the schools. That is where we need to see change happen right off the bat. I said this in my last testimony in Arizona, like, we wouldn't allow lead paint in the classroom, right? We would be like, okay, cancer causing. Why on earth would we allow carcinogenic chemicals in their food then? Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? And there's plenty of research that shows these chemicals are there. You just have to see, what food does this mean they won't be able to serve? And that is the reason why we haven't got rid of it in the past. Wow. It's not a lack of research. It's a lack of voices in support against these big food conglomerates that are trying to take advantage of children in schools. And let alone, these kids are expected to go pass a test after they're consuming these foods. I mean, what the heck, guys? Like, this is no way to even support a positive learning environment for these children, let alone a positive future for them. So it's a really important message that we're trying to get out. I just tweeted a photo of a lunch meal from an Idaho state prison versus one from one of our Texas public schools. And the one from the state prison looked 10 times nicer. And everyone in the comments is saying, oh yeah, the one on the left is totally school lunch. And I'm like, guys, it's that bad. It's that bad, Danielle. There's like a moldy looking biscuit in the one from here. I mean, and I went to public school before I went to Alpha, and I mean, I was part of that lunch program, and it was terrible. I just remember kids would race to get chocolate milk, and then they would like pick at all of the weird bread stuff, that greasy canned pizza.
Oh,
I know.
Goodness.
I know.
Yeah.
So bad.
At some points, I think, because I went until like 2nd, 3rd grade, and it was bad. Kids hated eating food from the school so much that they would like mix their food together.
Oh,
and they would just,
that's such a kid thing.
Yeah, I know. They were like, I don't even want to eat this anymore. And so everyone, what's good is at my school, a lot of people did end up packing lunches. Like, they had their parents pack lunches.
That's great.
Because it was disgusting. It was greasy noodles and pizza and bright pink yogurt. And it was awful.
Loads of sugar in that.
But I also
yogurt.
know that I, have my own health issues, and so I'm, on the journey to eating better as well, and you've been very inspirational to that. But I felt such a difference. For example, I didn't realize when I was younger that I always had this creeping sense of feeling heartburn, but I didn't know what it was.
Oh, wow.
And once I started eating better, that completely went away.
That is amazing,
And
Danielle.
it was so interesting.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you felt a difference when you transitioned?
Oh my gosh, yes. Yes, no, and this is, I think, the number one selling point for Gen Z. Like, anyone who is listening right now who is from Generation Z, don't drink that Coke not just because you want to avoid cancer. Yeah. Like, you are a zombie right now. You're walking through life half dead and you don't even know it. And it only takes maybe 2 weeks. Commit. Get rid of soda, fast food, added sugar. I don't care. Pick one, get rid of it, and you will feel like you're actually alive. Like, it's so true. But people don't know that they have been living this way until they give it a shot. And it's so hard to go 2 weeks without your favorite things. We're all addicted.
Yeah.
Like, it's so hard, but it's really important.
It is very important. Yeah. And do you feel like Alpha because then you went to Alpha after public school. And do you feel like their food was better? How did that work?
It's definitely better. They would try to do more farm to table lunches sometimes. I think that's the program they're doing. If I'm being quite honest, I haven't done the best job keeping up with their program, but I would love to still improve upon it a little bit more.
Yeah, that's incredible. What was your experience at Alpha like, and how did it lead you to start this documentary, and how did it lead you to now work under like Casey Means and Callie Means and RFK Jr.?
Yeah. So Alpha is a startup school in Austin, and we have some actually outside of the States as well now. And basically, Alpha was founded on a couple of principles, one of which is that kids will learn 2 times as fast. Another one is that they will love school, and another one is that they will learn life skills. And I think that all of those things were completely proven true in my experience there. I mean, when I was in 5th grade, I had gone to my dad and I told him, look, I want to try some different schools for middle school maybe. Like, I don't know if I want to just go down the path of all of the public schools for the district I was in. And he was like, yeah, let's try this one. So my cousin was going to this crazy school called Alpha. I went and I tried it out, and my mind was blown.
Wow.
And the reason why is because I thought I was a good student at public school. I was like, I'm in GT, I'm getting A's in my classes, like, I'm set, guys. And when I went to Alpha, I was like, what on earth? There were kids giving public speeches who were 2 years younger than me. There were kids that were 5 grades ahead in math and didn't have a teacher teaching it to them. They just were learning on their own computer. There were kids that didn't have to wear their shoes, and I was like, to me, that was like, when you're in 5th grade, that's a selling factor. You're like, I can take my shoes off. What is going on? And so then I told my dad that. Of course, I opened with like, they don't wear shoes. And he's like, okay, we're definitely not going there. But then I told him, I was like, I can't go back. I cannot go back. And I had friends at my old school that I was really close with. I had a life that was set up and ready for me to go through and follow through with all emotions and stuff. And that just wasn't what I was feeling. And I really think it was like, for me, I mean, we've talked about this before, but I'm a very strong believer, and I think it was a God thing. I think that I knew in that moment I needed to try whatever this Alpha was about, and it completely changed my life. Alpha doesn't have teachers. We learn everything online in the morning, and because we learn everything online through these apps and AI on computers, we actually only spend 2 hours on academics in the day. And that opens up the afternoon for when you're in K through 8 life skills. Like, my niece is doing a play through the school right now that she is putting together and everything. Some of the other kids ran an Airbnb last year that they completely created and ran all on their own, and these are 6th graders. And they're still running it. I asked one of them, I was like, are you guys ever gonna get rid of it? He was like, it's a good source of income for right now. It's like,
whoa, a lot better than me in 6th grade.
6th grader am I talking to? Yeah, and then in high school, you're given the opportunity to do a massively ambitious passion project in the afternoon. And they say these should be Olympic level. So that's why when you go on the website, I mean, you can see a video of the kids saying theirs. Like, my sister, for example, she's super passionate about Broadway musicals. She created the first TikTok musical called 355. It follows a spy who is kind of in the same era of Hamilton, like the American Revolution, who's trying to figure out her way through life, and it's just a brilliant story. She wrote all of the songs with a partner who she found through just a musical camp she went to, and then they basically hired all of their actors through TikTok.
Insane.
Just TikTok networking. They had their first debut of all the songs in New York a couple weeks ago, completely sold out in one of the oldest, most respected musical debut spots called 54 Below. And I know you know, because you're super into that too. See, I hope they know that she's an incredible actress and singer, guys. One day on the podcast. Next time I'm on, we'll sing together.
Yeah, we'll do a
No,
little
I won't be singing.
bar.
You will. It's really cool. And so then we also have a girl who created the first teenage dating app and already has tons, thousands of downloads. And I wanted to create my documentary. So my goal was to get over 1 million views. I ended up getting 5.2 million on X. Yeah, and it was crazy, so crazy. But I wouldn't have gotten there without Alpha, is the long point of the story.
No, that's amazing. How is it working for, literally RFK Jr. and you're spearheading part of this Make America Healthy Again movement at 19. That's crazy. Yeah,
it's pretty crazy. I mean, lots of imposter syndrome. I'm over here next to RFK Jr., Kelly Means, Dr. Casey Means, Dr. Marty McCary, Alex Clark from Turning Point USA, and I'm like, Wow. So I'm Grace Price from Texas, and no, it's been like the most incredible experience ever. I got to testify with them in front of the U.S. Senate Investigations Committee. I think it was back in November or something, but we were talking about the connection between food and chronic illness. It was really awesome. Senator Ron Johnson put that together, and then after that, I mean, I've gone to a lot of MAHA events. I've been able to lobby for a lot of the bills that we're pushing out right now. And really, my goal is just to represent Gen Z and help RFK Jr.'s message reach Gen Z, because I think that he is the best hope for Gen Z right now. Him being in his position of Secretary of Health and Human Services, like, I think that's just absolutely huge. And I'm so glad that he was sworn in and it's official now. But yeah, I think there's so much that we can do because of that. Like, I want to see so many different chemicals removed. Right now, I think we're really prioritizing the chemicals that are already not allowed to be served in other countries from these big food companies. Like Kellogg's, really popular example with the movement right now. Kellogg's will use certain artificial dyes in the U.S. that they don't use in the U.K. They use things like carrot extract or natural like colorings from plants and stuff. So it's just like, okay, come on, guys. Let's at least get to the same level as that. And I will say, like, I don't think we should do everything modeled after the European Union. You know, like there are a lot of things that they do that I don't necessarily think is best for the U.S. and would foster like our strong democracy in a way that would be really beneficial. But I do think they have a point when it comes to being extra careful what we put in our body. There are over 1,000 chemicals that aren't FDA approved that are in our food system currently, in the foods that we consume every single day. But in Europe, it's extremely hard to get any kind of chemical passed. It's completely flip-flopped approach. And so I think the biggest challenge of the whole Make America Healthy Again movement is going to be, how do we draw the line between innovation and public health and public safety? So there is a fine line, and I think the first thing we have to do is we have to protect the kids, because it's not free choice when the choice has already been made for you by these big food companies and addiction is involved. If you are neurochemically imbalanced, you are not properly utilizing your brain's ability to make decisions. And I mean, sugar is very much scientifically proven to activate the exact same neural pathways as cocaine or these other drugs that we know are completely addictive. So it's like, okay, give a kid that and then expect them to make a rational decision about it. And our brains also aren't fully developed anyways. So there are a lot of reasons why we need to protect children in this situation. But at the same time, you know, we have to still make sure that we're prioritizing free choice and freedom of speech amongst all of that. So, yeah.
How do you deal with the accusations on like TikTok and probably throughout your everyday life that and X that are like, oh, Grace Price is heading this political movement because it's, you know, Make America Healthy Again. A lot of people associate that, you know, with Make America Great Again, and that's very controversial. And I think health is supposed to be a bipartisan issue. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, no, that's also a fantastic question. It's a completely bipartisan issue, even though people keep trying to make it political, which just drives me crazy because this is not about politics. It's about our kids. RFK has said this multiple times, that the only way we're going to be able to see real change is if we can put aside our hate for one another and actually just prioritize our love and our care for the children. And I do understand why people think like it's political, but all I can say is that it's gonna end up having to take both sides to actually get this movement to have the impact that we want to see. So that means like talking to both sides in the ways that they would understand. I mean, it's so funny because in the past, like, this used to be a totally democratic issue, actually. And when you look at the states in the U.S. that have made the most progress in banning some of these chemical additives, it's blue states. And so that's a really interesting part of it. So it's like, how do we blend this message in a way that unifies people instead of dividing them, because we don't need any more division.
Yeah.
We need people to be unified before it becomes just a non-negotiable, because we're just all so sick. There's literally no other way out. So, yeah.
That's insane. Wow. How do you deal with the personal hate?
The
Or
personal
ex.
hate. I have some good friends that I talk to. One of my favorite things is my friends will come up to me. They'll be like, Grace, on that tweet you did from the Arizona bill, someone said that instead of you removing chemical additives, you should remove all of that foundation from your face or stuff like that. And I'm like, wow.
Okay.
I mean, kind of creative, but like, come on, guys. And what gets me is the grammatical mistakes, too. I'm like, at least spell it right, guys. Like, if you're going to hate, make it good. But,
Yeah.
you know, it is what it is. I mean, I feel like you always see those people on YouTube, like the famous YouTubers. They're like, oh my gosh, the hate is like crazy or whatever. And I'm not even a famous YouTuber. Like, I'm literally only popular amongst certain like 40-year-old men on X. But when I do get the hate, I mean, you just kind of have to read it and remember, like, I'm not doing it for the people who are hating. I'm not, like, that's not at all the purpose of this. It's not really to build up myself either. I really have to remind myself to be humbled enough to remember that this is, again, like, bring myself back to the picture of the person who is in the hospital bed, who is just terrified out of their mind because they don't know whether they're going to live or not, because they just have no idea what is happening to their body right then and there.
Yeah.
Like, that is who I'm doing it for. And it's hard to constantly remember that when, you know, social media, there's so much going on, but that's what I try to bring it back to. And then the hate and the praise kind of fall away when you go to that place.
That's really cool. Very
Yeah.
mature of you, actually.
Thank you.
Wow.
I'll try to be.
I don't even understand how she has time for any of this. Like, okay, so what
No,
how
I'm
did
so
you
embarrassed.
come-
You always see me like running late to class. I literally run into class and I have my backpack, I have my Yeti, and I'm like, guys, sorry. And then I'm like, oh, gotta go. And then I get up and
No, it's amazing. One time I was sitting down writing an essay, and Grace is in the library, and I go to like give her something or tell her something, and she's like, "Oh yeah, thank you. I'll be right back. I have to go do an interview with Fox or with CNN or whoever, and I'm gonna be right back." And she like changes a shirt and goes into a little cubicle, does an interview, comes back. Sorry, I'm back. It's incredible. She's like, "Oh yeah,
oh my gosh.
like you came into our room the other week and go, oh yeah, I'm just gonna, you know, go to Arizona and, you know, try to pass this." And I was like, girl, I just woke up. What do you mean? What do you mean you're about to get on a flight and go make positive changes to America? That's insane. So how did you decide that you even wanted to come to UATX? Like, it seems like you have so much going on without it.
That's a fantastic question. To me, when I first heard about UATX, I was like, there's no other college for me. I already didn't really want to go to certain other schools because I was not bought into the whole idea that I would not be able to say certain things. I'm obviously a very opinionated person, and I like to challenge the status quo, whatever side that may be on, like, all politics aside. And UATX was like encouraging that. I mean, when we did that camp, I think that's really when I was sold. But we were questioning things like cultural appropriation, whether it exists or not. How do you define it? We were questioning whether saying that eating meat is bad is like actually ethical, or what the arguments could be for that. All these kinds of things. And I think that it's so important for teenagers and college students just to think. I'm like, we need to be thinking more, and we need to be conflicted and wrestling with our beliefs daily. I'm scared of people who aren't like that daily, who aren't having that existential crisis during lunch as they're talking to their friends about what they discussed in class. Like, that's what you need. And that's what really keeps your mind active, and I think also keeps you from becoming a little stuck in your ways. And those people just aren't very fun to be around, I've found. But UATX, I mean, was that and even more, because the professors are incredible, the deans are amazing. I think it's really rare that you get to interact this much with the professors and deans, especially in your freshman year of college. I was talking to my dad about this. He was like, I didn't really get to even consider doing that unless I went to graduate school where you're studying under a professor. So that's also another really unique aspect. And the last one I would say is the people. I mean, I love everyone who goes to this university.
Oh, they're amazing.
I think we're all here under the same understanding that there really was nowhere else for us,
Mhm.
and that's what unites us, because we all want to achieve and learn the same thing.
I have something that's a little off topic, but it's kind of a question that was asked at that first camp.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if your perspective has changed on it now. What is your view on social media? Because I know you use that a lot for promoting your views and helping like fight back against
Yeah.
all these
That's a really good
crazy
question.
people. And I don't know if do you ever have conflicting views about, oh man, I'm on social media a lot, or I'm causing other people to look at social media more? Has it changed?
Okay, there's like two versions of Grace. One is the homestead trad like wife who wants to go and just raise chickens and have children and make her own food and grow it in her backyard. The other one is like, let's go fix America's food system. I want to go and get hired at McDonald's to expose all of the vegetable oils they use. Like, I'm very conflicted all the time. And so that more traditional, kind of weird, kind of hippie, woo-woo girl, she does not naturally use social media. Like, I did not have Instagram for a really long time. I just kind of hate it, if I'm being honest. I hate using TikTok. I think it's so annoying. But then when I first got into this and I realized the power social media holds, I mean, social media, the amount of people who I've made friends with who are based out of India or out of Malaysia, who literally like went from 0 to 50K followers, now have started a business, have connected with the top entrepreneurs in the US. I'm like, where do you find that kind of opportunity?
Yeah.
That's just insane to me, and that's what social media is for kids. And adults really struggle to realize this because a lot of parents think their kids have to go through life the same way they did just because that's the way it is and that's how they did it. Therefore, it's the right way. And times have changed. We have phones now from the minute we're born. And I think that there is a positive and a negative way to do social media. Like, obviously, the negative stuff is all of the comparisons and the depression and the anxiety and the loneliness that it can lead to, because we're meant to be social people in person, have real connections, not through online, and not have the pressure of so many people and so many eyes judging us constantly. And I really do think it's also led to a lot of narcissistic ideals in our society as well. However, at the same time, social media is kids' number one way to actually network and build in public and show their learning journey as they're trying to tackle their passions. And that's what I think Alpha really taught me, that you can use social media to not just be a consumer, but be a creator. And when you're a creator, it's actually very different because you're not on social media for the brain rot and the doom scroll. You're actually on social media to hopefully give some positive content to other people and see what impact that can make. And because of that, I actually do believe social media has more value than it does take away value from other people. However, I don't think that there's enough education on that value. So it's a hard balance because I'm like, I had a really weird school I went to that I'm just like so lucky I got to experience. But I do know that for these kids who maybe wouldn't have like the same chance to go and have a crazy cool network because their parents aren't entrepreneurs or they come from a low-income household, social media can change your life like that. And that's really powerful.
So you think maybe from a creator standpoint versus consumer, it's good?
For sure.
Yeah, amazing. To bring it once more back to the food, I know there are a lot of people out there who think they're eating healthily. I know I went through that. I think the first time I realized I wasn't, my family was watching a TED Talk video, and this woman showed how many teaspoons of sugar are in a gram.
I literally know the one you're talking about. Yeah, that's
I'm gonna
one of my
link
favorites.
it because it is mind-blowing.
That is one of my favorites.
And we raided our cabinets and raided our fridge, and we looked and we saw these little like cranberry snacks. They're like dried cranberries, had like 8 to 10 grams of sugar.
Yeah,
it's
absurd.
So much. And then we looked at the oatmeal and we looked at everything else. And it shocked us, and so we realized, okay, we're not eating healthy. We need to fix something. So what would you say to people who maybe are struggling with that realization, and they want something that can help them?
Yeah, so specifically like what foods they should be trying to eat right now? Okay. So, I think that the best way to approach it is start out simple. Like, don't freak out because once you go down the health doom scroll, there's a lot. There's microplastics, there's stuff in your perfume that you didn't even know about, in your makeup, in your laundry detergent, and then you're like, well, I guess I just need to stop breathing and living life. Like, it gets bad really fast. So just take a deep breath. Start simple, and I would actually say start with sugar and fast food. Those are the easiest in my mind. So stop eating at fast food restaurants. That, like, a lot of people do it out of convenience. I totally understand. If you can, if your schedule allows it, if you feel like you can make the commitment, try your hardest not to, because the oils that they use there and the quality of the food from there is just not going to be fantastic. I cited a study in my documentary where they did this in the UK. They measured how much of this one toxin within a large thing of French fries there are. That is also in cigarettes. It's very common in cigarettes. And they found that there's about equivalent amounts of the toxin to, I think it was 25 cigarettes, which is crazy. It's like almost a whole pack in one large thing of French fries.
Oh my goodness.
Which is just, I mean, insane. So, and these are fast food restaurant French fries. If they still cooked fast food French fries in things like tallow and duck fat and more stable oils like olive oil and avocado oil, we wouldn't have as big of an issue. But these oils get rancid when they're used in the deep fryer multiple times per day, and it's not being washed at all. So you're just getting all of the carcinogenic, toxic runoff in your French fries. The second thing is sugar. And what that means is added sugar. Don't freak out about the other stuff yet. Like, you can decide whether you want to go on carnivore, keto, whatever. Maybe more animal-based, maybe more Mediterranean. I'm not trying to preach a diet here. I'm just trying to encourage you to read your nutrition labels. If you look on the back, you will see added sugar. That's what you want to pay attention to. If there's anything over, and this is going to sound harsh, 0 grams, it's a no. I think you can start with maybe trying to max out 10 grams per day. Most people consume up to 100 grams of added sugar, and they don't even realize it. Start with 10 grams, but eventually you want to get to 0. There's no reason we should be having added sugar. When you think about it, it's the least natural thing we have started doing in our diets as of recently. These sugars in fruit, for example, are bonded to fiber, slows the digestion. Instead, we're drinking, so it's in liquid form, 36 grams of sugar in just your typical bottle of Coke. And think how fast you drink that too. Would you ever consume, I don't know how many apples that would take, let's say 7 apples in that speed that you would drink? No, everything about it just completely ruins what we have evolved as humans and our genes are used to when it comes to digesting these foods and drinking these different drinks. Yeah.
Well, what is next for the infamous Grace Price?
A lot of things. I'm trying to leave my options open right now, but in school I'm interested in studying biochemistry. I would love to go to med school because I mean, it's been a dream of mine since I was little to be a doctor, but I think that even once you get that credibility, it just unlocks a lot of different things you can do and the impact that you can make. I don't agree with a lot of the med school curriculum right now, but I think in order to actually actively impact that, it's something I'm going to have to participate in, not judge from the outside. So that's one thing I would love to do. I'm going to keep being a part of the Make America Healthy Again movement, see where that takes me. I love fighting alongside Callie and all of these incredible friends that I've made. And I also am trying to do some more video content, investigative journalist stuff. I would love to, like I was saying earlier, highlight more of these real life scenarios, interviewing real people and why these are their habits, going to the hospitals, visiting who we're talking about saving, all that kind of stuff. And overall, my mission in life still is not going to change, and that's that I really do want to make Gen Z eventually cancer-free is the big dream, but overall just help reduce any kind of chronic disease that we'll have in the future and make us the healthiest generation yet.
I'm excited. Yeah. Thank you so much for trying to save us.
Thank you, Danielle.